Imagine for a moment that everything you were taught about evil is incomplete. Imagine that the face of the enemy, so feared, so rejected, was once the most beautiful of the darling. For centuries, a name has been whispered with fear, censored in the pulpits, and condemned in the altars: Lucifer. But who was he really? A power-hungry rebel angel, or a light bringer who dared to defy the silence? This is not a video common. You won't hear the same explanations, superficial as always. Today, we're going to cross threshold after threshold through forgotten scriptures, buried symbols, and truths that make the powerful uncomfortable. Prepare yourself. What you're about to discover can forever change the way you see the good, evil, and yourself. And before continuing, I ask you something very simple, but profound. If you have faith, if in your heart you believe in God, comment on this phrase now, same here below. The true light cannot be extinguished. Do it as an act of faith, like a spiritual seal, because this journey is not just intellectual, it is a call to the soul. And don't close this video. Stay until the end, because only at the end will you understand why this story was hidden and why you need listen to her. Because there is a question that no one dares to ask, but yes, you will dare to answer. What if Lucifer wasn't he enemy, but the first in say the true? It all begins with one word ancient, misinterpreted, repeated for centuries as if it were an absolute truth. But what if I told you that the name Lucifer never was associated with the devil in his origins? The story takes us back to the 4th century, when Jerome of Stridon translated the Bible into Latin, creating the famous Vulgate. In Isaiah 14:12, where the king of Babylon is condemned for his arrogance, an expression appears Hebrew, Hallel wel Shajar, which means the son of the tomorrow, or the morning star of dawn. Jerome the translated as Lucifer, from Latin lux ferre, the bearer of light, a poetic, beautiful term alluding to the planet Venus. In his morning apparition, nothing demonic, nothing satanic. But with the passage of the centuries, that word it was adopted by theologians and preachers as a synonym for Satan. The error became dogma. Poetry was transformed in condemnation. The most ironic thing is that in the same text, Isaiah did not speak of an angel. He was talking about a man, an earthly king. But the symbol overcame the context. And so was born the myth, Lucifer, the angel who fell out of pride. Why did this confusion persist? Was it really a mistake or a strategy? Because a powerful symbol has more effect than a simple political criticism. And the church needed a face for evil, an archetypal enemy, a rebel who served as a warning. And so, what was a bright star, a metaphor of beauty and light, became synonymous with darkness. But that's not all. In many ancient cultures, the light-bearer was a symbol of wisdom, not sin. In Rome, Lucifer was a representation of the dawn, a minor deity who announced he'd day. Do you think that sounds like a devil? This brings us to an uncomfortable truth. The story of Lucifer that they told us was built piece by piece, like a mask hiding something deeper. And if the name was misinterpreted from the beginning, what else was distorted? This chapter is not just about linguistics or translation. It's about how a simple word can change the way a civilization whole go he good and evil. It is the beginning of a fall, not of the angel, but of the true. Before being a symbol of darkness, Lucifer was light, and not a light, anyone. It was, according to ancient interpretations, the most resplendent of the angels, the favorite, the bearer of the sunrise. Imagine a celestial entity whose beauty challenged the understanding, whose voice was like living music, and whose presence inspired awe. That was the original image of Lucifer. A being who not only served God, but also reflected. In Ezekiel 28, although the text refers to the king of Tyre, they interpret it as an allegory of this celestial being. You were the seal of the perfection, full of wisdom and finished in beauty. You were in Eden, in God's garden, as such a being perfect could become in the symbol of evil. Maybe that's not the right question. Maybe we should ask why someone so close to the light decided to get away from her. Some Gnostic and esoteric currents offer another perspective. For them, Lucifer did not fall out of pride, but out of compassion. He wanted to hand over to the humanity a knowledge that was being denied. He did not defy God out of ambition, but out of love for the true. Does this sound familiar? Yes. It is the same story of Prometheus, the Titan who stole the fire of the gods to give it to the men and was punished for it. Thus, Lucifer transforms into an ancestral archetype, of the enlightened rebel, not like the enemy of the humanity, but as one who challenges the system to wake up the sleeping. But this vision was eradicated by the councils, dogmas, and the fear, because an angel who rebels by conscience is more dangerous than a devil with horns. And yet, in the depths of many mystical traditions, the echo of that angel is still alive, as if a part of the story had not been fully told, as if its true fall was not of the sky, but of our collective memory. So ask yourself, what does it tell us most about the good and evil, the obedience blind, or the courage to question? Lucifer before the fall was not the enemy. It was the reflection of something we deeply fear. The light that makes us uncomfortable, the truth that burns, the awakening consciousness. Every paradise keeps a secret, and in the highest part of heaven there was a war. It wasn't a physical battle. It was a fracture in the divine order, a rupture that changed the fate of the cosmos. The tradition Christian, especially through texts such as the Revelation 12:7-9, narrates a scene of devastating power. And there was a great battle in heaven. Michael and his angels, they fought against him dragon. That dragon, according to the popular interpretation, was Lucifer. But what originated this war? According to some apocryphal and ancient stories, Midrashim Hebrews, Lucifer did not accept an order, only one, to bow down to the man. Adam had been created, and the angels were summoned to pay tribute to him. Tribute. Lucifer refused. I will not bow down to anyone was created after me, there would have been said, not before one made of clay, while I was forged of fire and light. Was that pride or awareness of one's origin? Pride or fidelity to a higher logic? In that moment, the conflict broke out. Lucifer didn't just question an order. He questioned a design, and that, in a kingdom of absolute obedience, was unforgivable. The rebellion wasn't an explosion. It was a decision, a spark of freedom that ignited the rage of the darling. Miguel, the loyal archangel, was who it faced. Two forces, order and rebellion, obedience and questioning. The confrontation was not between the good and evil, as we understand it, but between two opposing visions of divine purpose. And Lucifer fell. But he didn't fall alone. According to the tradition, a third of the angels it followed. Did they all were blinded by the pride, or did they see in he something more, something that the inspired, the sky split, and with she harmony, Lucifer was thrown into the earth, and since then the world has never been the same again. An angel who carried light turned into a symbol of darkness, a fall that was not just punishment, but transformation. And here, an uncomfortable reflection arises. What would happen if what we call fall was, in reality, an act of will? What if Lucifer's exile was a way to continue his mission? From the shadows, maybe he was undefeated. Maybe he was redirected, and heaven never spoke of him again. Same manner, the story of a being that challenges the gods for the love of the true. It is not exclusive to Christianity. Throughout the history, different cultures have told similar versions, different names, same symbols, as if the figure of Lucifer were not a being, but a universal archetype. Let's get started with Prometheus, in the mythology Greek. A titan who stole his sacred fire of Olympus to give it to humans. For that act, was chained and condemned to eternal torment. But that fire was knowledge. It was consciousness. Prometheus, he was punished, not for destroying, but for illuminating. Does this sound familiar? In the ancient Sumeria, Enki appears, the god of the wisdom. It was he who challenged the gods' older people to protect the humanity during the flood. A being who, like Lucifer, acted against divine command to save. In the mythology Aztec, we find Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, a god associated with dawn, knowledge, and duality. A figure who taught the men, and then he was banished. Not destroyed, but hidden. Even in Hinduism, Shiva, the destroyer, is also regenerator, a divinity that breaks structures to allow the Renaissance. Isn't that also a type of light? And in Buddhism, Mara, the tempter of Buddha, is not a devil in the Western sense, but a force that represents attachment to the illusion. It is the final threshold that the seeker must cross. So what do these stories tell us? They tell us that the one who falls, the one who challenges, the one who breaks rules, isn't always evil. Sometimes it's the initiator, the one who opens the door, path. Lucifer in this context is not a name isolated. It is part of a deep symbolic network, a figure that represents the transition between the innocence and the knowledge. And this changes everything. Because if so many cultures recognize this archetype, why Christianity decided convert it in he, absolute enemy? Perhaps because a being who teaches how to think is more dangerous than one who simply obeys. Not about idolizing Lucifer, nor justifying his rebellion. It is about understanding that his figure goes beyond of dogma. It is a reflection of an ancestral human concern. What is happening to the other side of the light that they tell us not to look at? Lucifer did not disappear after its fall. It did not become extinct. It transformed, and that transformation did not occur only in the heavens, but in our culture, our ideas, and our shadows. Today, the name Lucifer continues to provoke fear and rejection in many, but at the same time, time is a symbol of attraction, of mystery, of hidden power. How is this possible? In esoteric currents such as theosophy, the Luciferianism, or the chaos magic, Lucifer is seen as the bringer of awakening, not as an entity to be worshipped, but as a symbol of liberating knowledge from the conscience that dares to break chains. For these paths, Lucifer represents the principle that pushes the human soul towards the illumination, even through the conflict. It is not evil. It is the spark of inner rebellion that says, there is more beyond what I have been told. Saying, in art and pop culture, this symbol has also been redefined. From Milton's works such as Paradise Lost, where Lucifer is portrayed as a tragic hero, to modern series like Lucifer, where he is presented as a tormented, complex being, full of humanity. Because the modern world begins to see Lucifer not as the monster, but as the mirror, because we live times of spiritual crisis, of religious structures that are crumbling. And in the middle of that emptiness, ancient symbols re-emerge with new voice. For some, Lucifer is the symbol of explorer, of the one who dares to walk in the darkness to find your true. For others, it is the sacred rebel who questions not to destroy, but to rebuild. And for many more, it is simply a reminder that true light sometimes is born of the conflict. But also, there is danger here, because the figure of Lucifer, misunderstood, can be used as justification for excessive ego, for arrogance disguised as enlightenment. Not all defiance is wise. Not all rebellion is truth. That's why it's vital to understand that this symbol is twofold. It's not about worshipping Lucifer, nor about fearing him blindly. It's about seeing it as a mirror that forces us to look inside. Who is your inner Lucifer? The voice that questions, or the one that manipulates? The drive to grow, or the drive to dominate? Lucifer today is not just a biblical character. It is a contested symbol, a battlefield between the ignorance and awakening, between the darkness that confuses and that which reveals. And in the end, it all comes down to a choice. Will you use light to see or to blind? Now that you have heard all this, now that you have walked with me through every forgotten fragment, every denied shadow, every distorted symbol, the question remains there, beating stronger than ever. What if Lucifer was anti-enemy? What if the story they told you was it written to control, to limit, to tame the human soul? What we have explored does not seek to justify evil. It does not seek to glorify disobedience blind. He simply seeks to recover a figure that was mutilated by the fear and for power. Because if Lucifer was the light-bearer, perhaps his fall was not a punishment, but a mission. Perhaps by being cast down to earth, he came not to destroy us, but to awaken us. That's the one, the deepest mystery. The light that burns brightest isn't the one that comes from outside. It's the one that's born within you when you dare to ask. And if what they taught you was just a part of the history, then have he right, and perhaps the responsibility to seek the other half. Lucifer is a mirror. Sometimes it shows us it worse, but also can show the courage of those who do not accept answers easy, because the enemy is not the one who questions. It is the one who prevents you from thinking. It is the one who forbids you from looking at the other side of the currency. So today, I invite you to do something deeper than just looking at a video. I invite you to reflect, to question, to light your own light. And if this message resonated with you, if you feel that this story deserves to be heard by others, do something powerful. Share this video, like it, and comment below. I'm no longer afraid of the light. Do it as a symbol, as an act of affirmation, as a spiritual declaration that you are ready to see beyond of dogma. And tell me, what? You think Lucifer was a traitor? Or was he first in, say, the true in a world that didn't want to listen to her? Your voice matters. Your reflection can light another spark. And maybe that was what Lucifer wanted all along, principle.